All right, well, hello down there. Welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
Before we get started, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and let's just jump into it. Today, it's episode 29 of the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. You guys were wondering, how long can this thing go? I remember when we were starting the channel, people were like, so you got a couple episodes worth? And I was like, oh, we're just going to keep going. Today we're talking about the ones.
Yeah. So the ones would be, I don't even really know how to describe them because they're so unique.
Yeah. They are, they're just the ones, man. Okay, here's the thing. I know we have a lot of fans that are more hardcore fans of Star Wars that would know, oh yeah, the ones. And then you have the surface level fan or the average fan, the casual fan. And so...
The Chadra fan.
That was pretty good. So our goal always is to service both.
Right.
That's what we're going to try to do today. So the ones are introduced, in my opinion, in the most interesting arc of Clone Wars episodes.
Yeah, I think...
Not the craziest. Well, there's that stuff with the Wills and Yoda later on.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the most interesting to me just because it's the most pertinent to Star Wars as a whole.
That's true. This one, to me...
It's definitely the most unique.
It's the most unique, and if you guys who know me personally are watching this, I mean, I can't imagine anyone watching doesn't know one of us personally. Hey, you never know. But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Like, I'm a realist. Like, I know when things are a little bit kooky and a little bit out of there, but that doesn't keep me from watching Ancient Aliens.
Right.
I want to, you know what I'm saying? I want to explore those things. And so the ones are the Ancient Aliens of the Clone Wars.
That's a really good way of putting it.
You like that?
Yeah, I like that.
So we'll jump into this. And per usual, over the last couple of weeks, since we've been doing kind of character treatments, what we'll do is we'll go into, canon. So this is stuff that is true within the Star Wars universe, and then again, like we've been doing with the Jawas and stuff like that, we'll jump into Legends, and Legends is where it really gets buck wild.
It does. And it's not going to be, we were watching some videos earlier, and this guy was like, this is the canon that I've selected, and I think you might like it better than the canon that they're feeding us. And I was like, you're making stuff up. Buddy.
Yeah, the term there is headcanon, which means it only belongs in your head. That's why you don't make a YouTube video of it. Every once in a while, if we want to talk about something, but we need to brush up on our knowledge, we'll reread a book or we'll watch a video to catch up or just things like that. This guy was like, here's what I think. And I'm like, whoa, what is it? Who are you, Ryan Johnson?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
He was taking a page out of Adam Savage's notebook from the early episodes of Mythbusters where he says, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
That's so funny.
One of his classic lines. All right, I'm going to hit you with the 1-2 buckaroo, shoot you from the hip. Do you have any news?
I knew you were going to do that to me. Not off the top of my head. Let me think.
I feel like it's kind of stalled out here for a minute.
There's always material coming out. So, for instance, this week, the young adult novel Poe Dameron Freefall came out, and it's kind of... It's a little bit of Poe's backstory before the sequel trilogy, and it has a lot to do with Zori Bliss and stuff like that. So that's pretty neat.
When you get deeper into the novel, you have to let me know if it's just a coincidence their last name is Bliss.
I'll do my best. Other than that, nothing super crazy. Not that I can think of. But I'm really excited about this episode. The ones.
Yeah, this is a topic I've kind of been stymied by for a long time, just because we know what we know, and you have so many questions that come up, based on what's seen in the 3 or 4 episodes.
Well, like questions that Legends content that was going on while the Clone Wars was coming out answered, but then right as that stuff happened, Disney took over, and now... And we're back.
All right, now that's out of the way.
So here's what we're going to do. Samuel, I'm going to let you kind of shoulder the canon material, and then I'll jump into Legends, because the Legends material is basically all out of what do you call a series of 9 things? Like a trilogy, what do you call that? A nineology? I don't know.
I think it's just a series.
Yeah,
You would just call
at
it
that
a series.
point.
What do they call it? The Skywalker Saga?
Yeah, I guess. A series of books called The Fate of the Jedi. And the interesting thing about The Fate of the Jedi is it's the furthest we ever really got in Legends material before the Disney purchase. And that's where the Legends material for the ones comes about. Mm-hmm. And anyways, I'll jump into all that. Yeah. So take it away.
Yeah, so we've got the ones are introduced in what most people would refer to as the Mortis arc. It takes place on, it's not really even a planet because it's, I guess, the closest thing we have to a flat Earth in Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's kind of, in Star Wars Rebels, there's the place called the World Between Worlds.
Right.
And it exists, but it's not really on a map.
Right.
And I feel like Mortis is kind of that thing.
I feel like the Mortis is kind of like the room of requirement within the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's very...
unplottable.
Mm-hmm.
It exists where it wants to.
And even trickier.
Yeah. And it's cool because it seems like as the day progresses, it changes in seasons, and the weather's really extreme. And
yeah.
It's so full of life, and at the same time, it's so full of death.
Yeah, there's people we know that they live life that fast, that every day is a season. But yeah, on Mortis, exactly. So I couldn't help it. But as
if you know, you know.
But on Mortis, it's interesting because the day has multiple seasons to it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's almost as if time doesn't even exist. It's so slow because these are basically eternal beings.
Right. So we looked up a timeline, and I think the canon timeline is like 100,000 BBY that these beings first came into existence. Right?
Something like that. They're before that. As far as we know, they've always been about. There's not really a timeline for them. The timeline you're thinking of is another character that is from the Legends that is attached to the ones.
Okay. So that would have been when she came along. Gotcha.
A little teasy.
Well, you know. So they're also known, if they're not known as the ones, they're kind of titled the Overlords, which is the first episode that they appear in as the Overlords. It's season 3, episode 15.
Yep.
And what it seems to be is that the more you get to explore these individuals, the more they seem like they're the embodiment of the type or portion of the Force that they align with.
Yeah, they're
so in tune with the Force, it's almost as if the Force flows with their will.
Right. They're forever, we always heard the balance of the Force, the balance of the Force, the balance of the Force. And light side, dark side, and there's supposed to be a balance.
Yeah.
And so they are a family that makes up a microcosm of what...
Well done.
Thank you. They're basically a small, easy-to-see picture, almost like a living parable of what the Force is. Mm-hmm. And so there's 3 members to this family. And so, obviously, you have the father. Mm-hmm. And then there's the son and the daughter. And so, very, very... And it's cool because even within the animation style of Clone Wars, these characters have a very unique art style to them. Mm-hmm.
They look different. Also, they're huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they meet the daughter first. Mm-hmm. Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, they appear to these coordinates. They are in communication with Rex. They're both at the same place on the map, and they can't find each other. Mm-hmm. Essentially, they get tractor beamed in. They wake up. They don't remember who landed the plane or the ship.
Right.
And the daughter welcomes them, greets them, starts guiding them to meet the father.
And she's
like head and shoulders taller than Anakin.
Yeah,
she's massive.
She's super tall. And the cool thing is, the daughter is an embodiment of the light side of the Force, and so she has like
this grace.
There's a grace about her where she's kind of flowy, very Sidious from Star Wars Battlefront, where he's just like, yee, just kind of like floating to where, where he's going to be. But anyways, and she also has this light about her. I mean, no pun intended. She's an embodiment of the light side of the Force, but she's also there's like a glow, a physical glow to her. And then her counterpart
is the son.
The son.
Who, funny enough, he's voiced by Sam Witwer. Obviously, who else are you going to get to do that? But he kind of looks like Sam Witwer.
He looks a lot. And in fact, as I was watching Star Wars, Darth Maul wasn't back yet.
Right.
In Clone Wars. And so when I heard the voice, I wasn't as attuned to it. Now.
See, I was because I played so much of The Force Unleashed.
Right.
Immediately. Also, his face kind of looks like a Utapau.
Yeah, Palin, yeah.
Palin.
So when I recognized his voice, but his facial expressions were so on point that I was like, that's Sam Witwer. Like, I just knew right off the bat. Obviously, I'm a big Force Unleashed fan myself. And so I was like, that looks like Sam Witwer. And then, of course, I heard it, and I was like, what's going on? And for a moment before the story unfolds, I was like, oh my God. They found a way to have almost like a Starkiller character. But
basically,
like this is this
blows is the Force Unleashed.
Yeah, this blows Starkiller out of the water.
Yeah.
So you have the daughter, who's an embodiment of the light side of the Force. Then you have the son, who is an embodiment of the dark side, and also it's cool because it's like, okay, so the light side of the Force, the daughter, she's going to be nice, he's going to be mean. Like, it's much more complex than that. And you have the joy and the freedom that the daughter kind of moves with. I think it's kind of a part of that grace that you see her actually physically move with, is because there's that lightness, there's that peace to the light side of the Force. And throughout the arc, you see the son is very tormented, and he's very,
Even from the beginning, when he knows who Anakin is, he knows why the father's kind of pulled him in.
Yeah.
He's still operating from within the shadows from the get-go. He's manipulating Anakin through Force visions and illusions.
Right.
Very dark side tendencies that you would expect someone who is an embodiment of the dark side to use, to employ.
Yeah, very extremely powerful and couldn't be more paranoid.
Right.
Yeah.
Something else that was interesting is that both of the son and the daughter, I don't think you see the father do it, but they kind of shapeshift and they turn into flying creatures.
Yeah, the father never does it.
And what I thought was interesting while I was playing Jedi Fallen Order is when you're on Dathomir, you fight a creature that's dark side that looks very, very much like what the sun turns into.
Oh, really?
And then on the opposite, you have Kashyyyk, which is a light side Force Nexus, and you kind of rescue and fly on top of a creature that looks very much like what the daughter turns
Almost
into.
like kind of like a hippogriff from Harry Potter.
Except for this one is massive.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have the hippogriff, which is like what the daughter turns into. It's like a lime green.
It's cool because it's
glowy.
Reptilian, but it also has feathers. It's very cool.
Yeah. It's very Narnia-ish. And then you have Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon meets Darkseid, which is what the son turns into.
I was thinking I would rather turn into what the daughter turns into just because it has more hands. The son, he just has legs and then like little hooks on the edges of his wings.
Yeah. I thought that
very bat-like.
The son's character could have been more. It was very like, not satanic, like in a religious sort of way, but very dark and evil, scary Satan kind of Halloween look. I wish that he would have been less rounded in the face.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looked like Toothless to me,
very,
so I was like,
very loath cat in the face.
Yeah. Very
a nice semicircle face.
Something more to the point would have been more, I guess, a more aggressive look. But we never do see the father ever shapeshift.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to.
I think what's cool about that, or just the thought of it, is that he kind of leans more light side Force ideas as far as not wanting to rule. You know what I mean? He does it more out of necessity than out of desire.
Yeah.
At the same time,
you know it's out of necessity because he's freaking exhausted.
Right. And you see him interacting with the son, and he's completely undaunted by the existence of dark side powers and usage. So it's just kind of an unusual comfortability with both ends of the spectrum that you don't really see with anyone else.
Yeah, whenever you see, Qui-Gon, who is very like, I'm just following the Force. When he meets Darth Maul for the first time on Tatooine, he's like, I don't know what that was, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's very winded. Obviously, it's because he hasn't fought never fought a Sith before. But emotionally and mentally, you can see that it was a shock to him. And the father's like, there goes my dark side son doing dark side things.
Yeah.
I think he does lean a little bit light, but I think this is headcanon, LOL. This is my opinion. But I think the Force itself is good in a way.
I think...
And the dark side is more of a perversion and breaking the will of the Force to fit your plans. Does that make sense?
I think it looks that way because...
We're writing good versus bad.
Well, in the Force itself is a balance of life and death. Even though it recognizes death as a natural part of that circle, it also preserves the life. You know what I mean? So that preservation just seems like a light side tendency, even though it's all part of one cycle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, the thing is...
So I think like a natural balance looks more light side than dark side.
Right. Because I think that there can be a balance. I don't really believe in Grey Jedi, but I do think that there are people who... there's that balance there where Luke could use his frustration or his anger to defeat Vader and not let it take him completely over the edge.
The way of the Vornsker.
There you go. Man, I like that. And so, basically, the Jedi are there. Really, Obi-Wan and Anakin don't really matter in this. Or Obi-Wan and Ahsoka don't really matter as much in this arc as Anakin. Yeah. They're along for the ride. They're riding Anakin's chosen one coattails.
Pretty much.
But he's been brought there by the Father to replace the Father because he is the chosen one.
Because he's the chosen one. It's cool. I think this is maybe the purest recognition we have of Anakin as being significant other than just being somebody who can essentially be manipulated by both sides.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have the whole midi-chlorian count, which caused an uproar in the 90s and early 2000s, where it's like, well, that's not fair, it's selective, that kind of thing. And then you have the Plagueis novel, which basically says that Plagueis' insidious manipulation of the Force created Anakin.
Or that it was a way of the Force pushing back.
Right. And then so in canon now, and according to George Lucas, the dark was becoming extremely powerful. And right as it was getting ready to take over the entire galaxy, the Force created balance by making Anakin as a force for good. Which says a freaking lot about Palpatine and Plagueis.
Yeah.
The two of them needed Anakin to be born to undo their work.
And one of the cool things, I'm in the middle of Plagueis again right now, and some cool things that really tie into this idea is that in the novel they reference the ones.
In Plagueis they do?
Yeah, and it's just in passing, and if you don't know what it's talking about, you wouldn't know what it's talking about. But it talks about these incredible beings that are unique and end up bonding themselves with the Force. Kind of is what you see is that embodiment of the Force by that bond.
Dang, I wonder if that is what he's referencing. That's pretty impressive.
I think it is because we looked it up, and the book Plagueis was released after this episode arc had happened.
Right.
And George Lucas was the one who created all the ideas for Plagueis. It was just James Luceno who wrote it. So classic George to have all that going on. But at the same time, it has a description of what Plagueis looked like in the Force towards the end of his life, and it says that he just looked like an orange whirlpool of energy, like that he had transformed his body into something capable of containing all of the power of the dark side.
God bless.
Which is incredible.
That's why I don't like the cheap death. I don't want to get into spoilers, but to get back on subject, though, the father brings Anakin there to create balance because his task of keeping the light and the dark, his son and his daughter, at bay from destroying one another, has exhausted him.
Yeah.
And they're basically eternal beings, but the son and the daughter look about 25, and the father looks about 6,000 years old.
He's father time.
Yeah, he's old. His beard's like...
Do you remember that type to learn program we had to do in elementary school?
Uh-huh.
And they had father time. He was sitting in that flying Corvette, and he just had that pointy hat on and the beard, over his shoulder
Flowing
out the
past
window.
him?
Yeah, exactly like that.
So he's brought there, and basically...
Like a comic strip Dumbledore.
Yeah, pretty close. And so some crazy things unfold, and the son feels very, very threatened because the light side of the Force is not less powerful, but it's less power hungry. So the son definitely feels like if the father's not there, he can overthrow the daughter, or he can at least rule over her. And so he kind of makes a power grab.
Yeah, and in doing so, he knows he needs to get Anakin on his side. And I think this is maybe one of the most telling things about Anakin himself, is that all the son had to do was show Anakin a vision of the future, and Anakin immediately turned dark side. Immediately. And the father was like, "Hey, no cheating." He knew it was too
To the
soon.
son?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he basically took away those memories from Anakin, which is crazy.
I know. There's that really iconic picture that you see every once in a while floating around the the internet or Instagram, where cartoon Anakin is like this, and there's that Vader helmet over him, and that's the vision that he gives.
Yeah.
He basically says, like, here's what's going to happen. Shows him the future, shows him Vader. You hear the Vader... And then when the son or the dad's like, no, none of that.
Yeah.
And basically gives him the old E.T. memory wipe.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Stuff that you don't see anywhere else. That's what makes this arc so insane.
The power that these guys wield is on another level.
Yeah.
And
you see Obi-Wan draws his lightsaber, because I think Obi-Wan finds the father first. And
Obi-Wan does an uncharacteristic...
What do you want with Anakin?
Yeah.
And he's obviously very protective of Anakin. And so goes to, kind of fight the father.
Yeah, he kind of does the whole, you better not screw up with my friend.
Yeah.
But he holds a freaking lightsaber up to the father's face.
And the father, just grabs the lightsaber and shoves it back into the hilt. Which is incredible, and also one of the least impressive things we see him do.
Yeah,
which is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, he doesn't just...
He grabs it.
Yeah, he doesn't
puts his whole
just...
hand on there.
In The Rise of Skywalker, you have the Kylo and Rey thing where they use the Force to grab it with the Force. But this guy...
Bare hands,
grabs the end of the lightsaber, and then basically is going...
Yeah, like you would do with a toy lightsaber.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to put a toy lightsaber back in the... You're like, get in there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you always have that one that's stuck more than the rest, so then the little bits all the way in there.
They're just jingling inside.
You end up stabbing yourself to get it in there.
Yeah, you finally just punch yourself with your opposite hand to get that collapsed again. But basically, the son realizes he's got one play. And the one play is to kill Dad.
Yeah.
Typical dark side bullcrap. And there's a blade on Mortis.
Of Mortis.
And it's basically...
It's kind of disappointing looking, to be honest.
Yeah. But it makes kind of sense. It's kind of... I was thinking, oh my God, what's it going to look like? I was like tripping, And when I saw it, it was very Indiana Jones...
I don't know.
This is the cup that Jesus would have drank out of.
This is going to sound stupid, but I understand that it's a cartoon series. But the dagger looked very cartoony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't look proportionate to a weapon. The blade at the base of it was as wide as the daggum crossguard. It was just nothing that anybody in their right mind would have forged.
Yeah. I think the idea was...
It's shaped more like a tooth.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, it looked like, when you're watching...
It looks like a canine tooth.
When you're watching Deadliest Warrior and they're like, they had a dagger made of hound's teeth.
Yeah.
Like, it was very... And I think that's the idea, is it's very archaic.
Primal, yeah.
It's very like, actually, this dagger is 250,000 years old. It's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So, I can't exactly recall how they get their hands on the dagger. Because the son cannot get to it for some reason.
Anakin has to get it. Actually, I think it's Obi-Wan that goes and gets it. And the daughter
Is it in the dad's house or something?
No, it's in some...
at the altar?
It's like it's some volcano almost. Like the base of a volcano. And Obi-Wan has to go down and get it. And then he gives it to the sister. And then Anakin, I think, tries to use it on the son. And then the son steals it. Tries to kill the father with it. And then, obvious
basically,
light side move, daughter.
The son...
He's manipulating
typical
the whole
Sith
thing.
is scheming, and I can't remember why, but the son can't get to the dagger.
It's put somewhere that's unreachable by them. The father on purpose constructed that area to be impenetrable by any of them.
So, but anyways, he says, he's going to kill the father, and he says, Why
don't you die?
The Jedi brought the dagger. You have brought yourself.
Yeah.
And basically that's his way of saying, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to get my way. And typical light side, as he goes to kill the father, the daughter jumps in the way, and the son kills the father.
The son kills the
sister.
sister.
I'm sorry, the daughter. Yeah.
And what's crazy is that he was really upset by it.
Yeah.
He didn't want to kill her. He wanted to kill the father.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he would still have to overthrow her.
Well, I think it's weird because, again, you have that dark side struggle within yourself that you don't want to do the wrong thing, but you also want complete power, so you'll just do what you got to do. I don't think Anakin, you see all the memes where, like, Anakin's killing a kid or whatever, but that was extremely painful for Anakin to do. It's not, he didn't want to do that,
It seems like it was even difficult for him just to kill the Trade Federation leaders and the Separatist leaders, because he seems pretty upset by it.
Well, think about that. Just at the beginning of that movie, which is like days before,
right?
You got Dooku, who's a total douche, and totally deserves to have his hands and head cut off, and he's really struggling to finish the deal.
What's interesting is
and nobody was mad. Nobody was like, "Oh, frickin' Anakin, why'd you do that for?" Like I'm sure Mace Windu, who's kind of the darker of the Jedi as far as like what he's willing to do force wise, was like,
"It's gotta happen.
Good job." He's too dangerous to be left alive.
I like the parallelism that Palpatine says that Dooku's too dangerous to be left alive, and then Windu says that Palpatine's too dangerous to be left alive. That was both their rationales. I thought that was fun.
So, all that to say, there is a struggle within the dark. Kylo doesn't want to kill Han Solo. You know what I mean?
And at the same time, he does.
And at the same time, he does.
Yeah,
There's that struggle
He's tortured by his weakness, I think, is Kylo's thing.
Well, Kylo's thing is he's drawn to the light.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like...
He's the opposite of Anakin. He wants to do good, and Anakin's like, whatever I gotta do, I'll kill whoever, it didn't matter. Kids, whatever. Kittens, throw them at me. And Kylo essentially sacrifices Han Solo on the altar of, now I'll feel like I have the power. Now I'll feel... And there's that moment...
Which is a pretty Sith move. When you have Malgus, who does an identical thing.
He does the Malgus thing, except for it works for Malgus.
Right.
And so... Basically, the son, I don't think the son I don't think he really wanted to kill the father, and I don't think he ever wanted to kill the daughter.
I think he was
just sick of being second fiddle.
I think he wanted to kill the father. I think he really did, because he seemed to have genuine hatred for his father. He was saying that he was dying too slowly.
I think that there's a built-up...
I think he was just tired of being restrained, and he would have seen his father as that roadblock.
Exactly. But I think there's a... I don't know. There's later on when the son ends up being killed, his feelings are hurt that the father would be in on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it seems almost more to me that it comes from a place of pride that, I can betray you, but you wouldn't betray me. You seem irreplaceable to yourself.
It's also really interesting that that's one of the moments where you're like, okay, so I guess father and daughter are just light side. You know what I mean? But then the dad's like, I'll help you kill my son. And you're like, there it is. There's the darkness in you, Pops. So after the daughter is basically knocking on death's door, the son has used Ahsoka and kind of infiltrated her mind to basically, force Anakin's hand to help him and give him the dagger or whatever it is. And so he's going to die, and the daughter who has saved the life of the father, she, as her last thing, reaches over, and Anakin is like a weird conduit who takes the power from the daughter and transfers it to Ahsoka, saving her life. Mm-hmm. And then after that, the very next episode, they're stuck there, and it's just the son and the dad. The father's dying, and he basically says, I don't have much time. We've got to defeat my son. And it's a kind of a sad moment because you're hoping that the balance is that, I mean, we know that what Anakin has to do, but in the moment, if you're just living episode to episode, we're hoping that the balance is Anakin just stays on Mortis and replaces the father.
Right.
And we're coming to the realization that it's more of an ironic balance where we're just going to make the balance sheet say 0.
Yeah.
And kill them all.
Yeah, kind of a foreshadowing of what he ends up doing.
Right.
It is something that needs to be mentioned is that the father, to test that his theory was right, made Anakin try and control the son and the daughter, and he does. He just manhandles them with the Force.
Right.
And you kind of get that cool like yin-yang aerial shot where they got that courtyard that kind of is, it looks like a solar calendar almost of all the things that happen on Mortis, and it has, you know, all these symbols to represent the balance that's there. Very cool scene.
Yeah.
It's
I always was kind of not frustrated, but like, I don't know. How does he have that power, but at
the same time, he's so manipulated. And I think about how any
like
Jedi who could have fought General Grievous could have just used the Force. You know what I mean? Like, there's that power that was just overlooked.
And maybe on Mortis, because it is obviously like a planet almost created of Force energy.
Maybe it was like it had to happen there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it was a unique event. I don't really know.
You know,
it's just one of those questions that
I can see the father going, okay, my work here is done, and almost lends his power to Anakin. Does it make sense? Like, in a way?
It seemed like that came from Anakin entirely. The father definitely had to manipulate him a little bit, but just to push him over the edge to do it.
Right.
But it looked like that was all Anakin to me.
With the daughter gone, if the son is not destroyed,
Darkseid's way too powerful.
And so basically, the father teams up with the 3 Jedi, and they kill the son. Mm-hmm. And after that's done, the father he's
pretty much just waiting to die.
Kind of Padme-esque, is just like, well, now my heart hurts. And he says, well, now I'll die with a broken heart. And that really sucks, because he's just trying to do his best. For all of eternity, he's just had these stupid 2 kids fighting, and the last thing he has to do is watch both of them die by the sword. And he's like, well, that's it.
Yeah.
And so the father, like you said, very Yoda, is just like, I need rest. Like, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
So he gives it up, and in that moment, he says, just as I had hoped, you restored balance, and if he goes, now remember this because you need to do this again. Mm-hmm. And he says, but protect your heart. Now, that'll preach. But so he dies, and Mortis, in a strange, backward, terrible, sad way, the balance is restored.
Kind of to take the whole microcosm idea a little bit further. The father brought Anakin in, hoping that he would just kind of manhandle both sides, and then he ended up killing everybody, which is exactly what the Jedi did. Yeah. Hoping Anakin would come in and have their perverted idea of what balance is. Have you ever seen that meme where it's Thanos with the blade and it says 10,000 Jedi, 0 Sith, and it's like perfectly balanced as all things should be.
Yeah.
And then he ends up literally killing everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody involved.
Yeah. It's a very sad but pretty realistic way of the way things needed to happen. And then basically they take off in their ship and they wake up, and it's a very Chronicles of Narnia moment. They come out of the wardrobe and Rex is like, Skywalker, I've been trying to reach you, sir.
We lost you there for a second.
And he's like, Rex, it's been like 5 days. What are you talking about? And he says,
I don't understand, sir.
Yeah, so there's a time warp there where when you're doing things in that realm of the Force, everything else is suspended.
Which also sucks for them because it's been 5 seconds, and for them it was several days. You know what I mean? It's just, God, that would go on forever.
Hyperbolic time chamber to the nth degree. And
if I were that father, I'd be ready to die.
Right? You're like, it's been 10 seconds? What do you mean? We've been here 6,000 years.
Imagine an eternal road trip with screaming children in the back seat. That's hell.
Yeah, that's hell. I'm getting this dagger. I'm going to fix this myself.
You never get to the destination. You die before you get there. You have to kill the kids before you get there. And before the murder-suicide is like a million years.
Yeah. Imagine
a million years of agony to be capped off by the worst agony, and you never get there.
Yeah, imagine The Mist.
What a terrible existence.
Imagine the movie The Mist for 600,000 years.
Dude, watching that movie, I was so pissed when we got to the end of that movie. I was like, this was a waste of my time.
Dude, I don't know why.
Also, Sam Witwer was involved in that one.
He was.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Sam in that movie. And so really, that's all we know from canon lore. And there is a very cool moment that actually leads to the World Between Worlds and Rebels, where there's a giant mural at an excavated Jedi temple on Lothal of the Ones. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Now, here's what's very interesting, is that if you look at that mural, you have the father, the son, the daughter, and the daughter on her shoulder has this chubby bird-looking thing. Mm-hmm. And every time Ahsoka does something significant, that bird is there. Have you noticed that? Mm-hmm. I think the bird's name is Morai, and I have no clue what her significance or its significance is.
It almost seems like a mythological reference.
Like the Force is like watching over her. But, I mean, I guess I'm going to get into some spoilers here as far as Rebels and Clone Wars are involved, but whatever. They're both actually done. You should have seen them if you're a real fan, whatever. But in Rebels, Twilight of the Apprentice, everybody assumed that Darth Vader had killed Ahsoka. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching it kind of frame by frame, as fans like myself are wont to do, as you're leaving the temple, right before you see Vader like hobbling to his ship to leave, Ahsoka's not dead. She's like walking down into like an underground tunnel almost. And as Vader's walking to his ship, that bird is there. And then fast forward in real time, backtrack in Star Wars timeline, when they get to at the very end of the very last episode of Clone Wars, we assume that Ahsoka, I mean, we know she's not, but they assume that Ahsoka and Rex and all them are dead. And as Vader is looking at that crashed Star Destroyer with all the clone helmets and all that stuff, you know, he's not Anakin anymore. He's Darth Vader, which I thought was super boss way to end the show. And flying above him is that same bird. And so, I don't know. Eventually, maybe we'll get a cartoon or a book or something that'll explain in depth what that is. But Dave Filoni's all about it. He is all about it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of an inside thing for hardcore Ahsoka fans. So on Lothal, whenever you're about to walk in and try to do that World Between Worlds action, you see that bird on the daughter's shoulder. And it's not a smaller version of her, whatever she transforms into. It's either like an extension of her or it's just an animal that she owned or whatever. But it's very interesting that they tie all that together. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of all we know as far as
now
canon.
You have to think, does that bird teleport like a Lothwolf?
That's what I'm saying. It's definitely, I don't want to say spiritual. It's a force entity of some sort. You know, Lothwolves, what the freak is going on with that? They're just running.
That's the thing I love and hate about Rebels, is they bring in these cool things and then they stop.
Yep, nothing to do. Nothing to see here. It's kind of like whenever you are watching an old Bugs Bunny cartoon and Bugs Bunny throws on a costume or like something to hide his identity, and he's like, "Oh, you looking for a rabbit? What's up, Doc? Oh, he's about this tall, big, long ears like these. Oh, fluffy tail like this. Eats a carrot like this." Never heard of him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's how it is. It's like, "Oh, I'm the Bendu. I'm the one in the middle. See ya." Yeah. Like, that's it. Lothwolves, all that stuff.
Yeah, Rebels is kind of the embodiment of that meme where it's like, oh no, anyway.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure
something incredible happens and then
I think some of that is more. Dave Filoni has so many stories he wants to tell, And
So instead of telling one really well, he tells all of them not at all.
he has them in his back pocket for a rainy day. Some of them. I really think that.
I mean, I'm sure, but
Who knows?
what if he dies tomorrow and we never get it?
Don't you.
This is the real world, man. People die. It's
Don't
not
start with
Rebels
me.
where people never die.
Kanan's like, I'm even dead and I'm back. Rise of Skywalker.
What is his name? Krillin?
Krillin, oh my god.
Back from the dead again.
Okay, so Legends. Whew, this one's a spicy meatball. I have no clue what our time is.
We're in it.
What are we at?
I don't know. I wasn't tracking. I think it was 40 minutes ago. We started 35 minutes ago.
Okay, that's fine. Legends material. So here's where all that timeline you're talking about comes in. So in Legends, it's a little bit different. In Legends, so in canon, what we have now as far as Clone Wars and all that stuff, there's no real beginning. In Legends, the ones are mortal to start, except for the father. I know it's kind of a hard thing. Anyways, but they're so powerful.
It's almost like the concept of gods and demigods.
Yeah, they're so powerful that their existence threatens the known galaxy, so they remove themselves to a planet that's not named. It's just known as, it's a tropical planet. That's all we know. And there are 2 force nexus on this planet. Now, if you're like, I don't know what that is, you're losing me. A force nexus is a place or a item, not an item, but like a location.
Usually a location.
A very specific location most times. For instance, if you've seen episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke goes into that dark side cave, that is a force nexus where the dark side of the force is especially powerful and can trick you into doing things that will lead you to the dark side. And that's why Luke has that vision.
Yeah.
And it forces him to forego the rest of his training and go to Bespin.
Or a more recent reference in The Last Jedi, that little suck hole.
There's that
in
dark
the bottom
side
of the Jedi
cave
temple.
at the bottom of, the near the mouth of the island that Rey falls
or
into.
apparently the remains of the Death Star on Yavin.
So that's what a force nexus is. It's an area or a location that is overwhelmingly strong with one side of the force or another. So on this planet that they banished themselves to, you have the father, you have the son, and you have the daughter. Same 3 characters, same characters, not similar but different, same exact characters as in Clone Wars. And as they're introduced in a book series called The Fate of the Jedi. And they're really not that important, except for they are the origin story of this 4th character. So while the father, son, and daughter are on this planet, in my mind, they're at 2 poles of the planet. You know, and you could have like King Kai's planet where it's like the size of this room.
Right.
But I imagine it's a smaller environment. And there is the font of power. And I looked it up. It's not fount. It's font. Which is strange. But there's the font of power. And there's the pool of knowledge. And so these are basically like the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. It's basically we can exist here forever, but don't touch these things. So the son, who is drawn by the dark side of the force, drinks from the fountain or the font of power.
Classic.
Goes full dark side. You have the daughter, contrastly, that is drawn more to the light side of the force. And which this was kind of a conundrum for me because to me, obviously having a Christian background, to me, you're only as good as you are obedient. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she breaks the rules as well. So I was like, well, that's dark side. But she breaks the rules and she bathes in the pool of knowledge.
How fitting that the light side, you get consumed by it by cleaning yourself.
Right.
These ablutions will possess you with the light. You know, don't do it.
It actually kind of reminded me of that place in Dwarves where she has to go, that Queen has to go dip into to get her magic. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So anyways,
A force nexus of its own.
Yeah, a magic nexus, if you will.
Yeah.
So you have the son who drinks from the font of power, and you have the daughter who bathes in the pool of knowledge, and now they are immortal. And apparently the dad's always been immortal because he doesn't do either one. So he's the balance because he doesn't do either one, but he's, I don't know, they don't really explain it that well. But these two go from mortal but very powerful or semi-immortal to full-on, we're living forever. And then about 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, which is a long freaking time.
Living that long on a planet with your dad and your sister, kill me. I'd go dark side. I go full dark side.
So there's a young human lady. We don't know what her name is, but she crash lands on this planet, which kind of seems whatever to me, but whatever. If the father's like all powerful, he can be like, oh no, we don't need any more troubles here. You go back. But she crash lands there, and she becomes a servant. She becomes a servant to the whole family, and basically like anything they need, she does it for them. She's kind of like their nanny, but they're hundreds of thousands of years old. But
that's on its own. I'm like, they're several 100,000 years old at this point.
Yeah, they're timeless. They're ageless.
And now they're gonna take orders from somebody who's like maybe 30.
Right? Who knows?
I wouldn't.
So
Listen here, whippersnapper. I've got turds older than you.
Yeah.
I've taken dumps that took longer than you've been alive.
So basically,
What if they did? What if they pooped for like 50 years?
I mean, why not?
That's a long poop on the toilet.
Right?
50 years.
I mean, I imagine once you become like an embodiment of one or the other sides of the Force,
You don't poop anymore?
you probably don't need to eat. I don't know. It's a
I
weird
would
thing.
want to.
I would still like to eat, yes. So basically,
Tasty Force coconuts on the tropical island.
yeah, we're gonna go to the Force Beach, do some Force surfing. So this woman, she becomes a very integral part of this family, this environment, whatever, and basically she becomes the mother, and they start calling her the mother. So you have the father who's pretty much all powerful. You have the son who's an embodiment of the dark. You have the daughter who's the embodiment of the light. And then you have this completely non-force sensitive, mortal young lady who becomes the mother.
How the frick does that work?
I don't know, but it's because of her devotion to them and all that stuff.
I don't care how devoted you are. You're 30.
Right? And so basically, she loves them and cares for them, and the father has a hard time keeping the son and the daughter away from each other, away from fighting, all that stuff. And the mother has this talent to keep everyone satiated, everyone's happy. She even teaches or convinces the dark side, the son, to use his power for good. And so there's like cliffs and stuff where they live, and instead of using it for evil, he uses his force lightning, which is red, which is super dope.
Which is red.
To create like homes and hallways and stuff out of these cliffs. So it's like
Very nice.
yeah. So she's doing all this cool stuff. Well, anyways, the thing is though, she's still mortal, right? And so she begins to age. So by the time she's getting older and she's reaching her mortality, the peace can't be kept anymore. And so this argument starts breaking out between the son and the daughter. And so she's very, very desperate. She feels she's at her wit's end. She's too old to physically get in between everybody and be like, hey, y'all stop it, you know.
Like, let's be real.
She never could have.
Yeah, was
right?
she ever powerful enough?
So here's what she does, dude. She runs and drinks from the font of power.
What if you have a font power Mai Tai while you're sitting in the light side pool? What happens then?
You're about to find out. She drinks from the font of power and then goes and bathes in the pool of knowledge.
Should have done it at once.
And she becomes the most powerful force user of all time, and it alters like everything about her. Basically, her body is destroyed almost, and it becomes this next level thing. And she becomes so powerful that she nearly kills the son and the daughter. And so to save the family, the father basically uproots them and takes them to, I'm guessing, Mortis. Mm-hmm. And while they're there, they basically encapsulate this island or planet that she's on in a part of space called the Maw. And she's stuck there forever as long as there's balance to the Force. And so as the light and the dark continue to coexist for 100,000 years on Mortis. She's kept in basically like a cage, similar to if you've seen the show Supernatural, like the cage from Supernatural where you can't get out unless you're let out. So she's stuck there because there's balance. And so really, even though she destroys herself and nearly kills the ones, she helps them keep that balance, because if they're angry at each other and one kills the other one, then she can get out. And so during Clone Wars, the son accidentally kills the daughter while trying to attack the father, and then the son has to die, but it happens in such quick succession that there's still balance. And so that's kind of kept. And then things get a little bit out of balance, but then Anakin comes around. Because you got to remember, in the grand scheme of things, what's 20 years to 100,000 years? Right. So 30 or so years after the events of the Star Wars that we know, Han and Leia's son Jason, not Kylo, this is from Legends, Jason Solo falls to the dark side and becomes Darth Caedus. Darth Caedus destroys multiple things and kind of shifts things back, and enough of a shift takes place towards the dark because he feels like the dark has to be powerful enough to keep peace. So he's kind of following in Anakin's footsteps. I'll go as dark as I need to do to create peace. And as a result of some of those things, the Maw is opened up and Abeloth is released.
Nice.
So after that whole shenanigans is done and Caedus is defeated, we think we're doing great. And basically Abeloth comes to wreak havoc on the known galaxy. And her thing is, if I can't be the mother to my kids who are now dead, then I'm just going to wipe everyone out.
Sick.
And so her goal is, again, she has all these force powers, right? So she changed from a normal human woman.
Yeah, think about like a venomized Mara Jade.
Yeah, she's very much like that Venom character where it talks about, if you saw her in her natural state, that she has like an overly large mouth and all of her teeth are like very, very sharp, like almost like very much like Venom. And then from her elbow down, instead of having arms and fingers, she has tentacles. And it's just a very like, her body's just been wrecked by the Force, and there's this imbalance inside, and it's kind of like menopause, basically. And so basically they have to destroy her, and
more like tentacles.
Pause, tentacles. Okay, good one. So at this point, Luke Skywalker, man, there's so much that goes on. But basically, if she touches you, she can drain some of your energy from you because she has all these force powers, right? And if she can take some of your essence,
Which Mark Hamill was also present for.
Yep. If she can take part of that essence into herself, she can then change her appearance to look like you. And so, long story short, she's like this close. If you're just listening to audio, my hands are very close together. She's so close to, she has taken some of the, she's drained some of the Force essence from this very popular senator who's on the rise in the New Republic. And she's going to become the head of state and basically just declare all-out war and basically just destroy all life as everyone knows it. And Luke and some of the other Jedi are the only ones who know what the deal is. And so long story short, they fight and they go into like almost like a spiritual world, very world between worlds-y before that was around. And so imagine you have Earth, and then if there was just like almost like the upside down of Star Wars, where there's all these other things that are going on. And so Luke Skywalker is fighting her one-on-one because Luke is the GOAT. And he's fighting her one-on-one, and he's just flowing with everything he has in the Force. And he's not strong enough. And out of nowhere comes some Sith. And no one's ever seen him before. No one knows who he is. And how he got to that astral plane in the Force, nobody freaking knows. But he comes out there, and Luke is distracted by him and is like, yo, what the freak is going on with this? And basically, the Sith is like, shut up and help. And so they join forces for a small time. And there's a pool in this place that they're fighting. It's I know it's getting deep water here, but imagine it's very much like in Harry Potter. It's the deep end of the pool. Imagine it like in Harry Potter. Remember whenever if you go through that that mirror that you're basically dead whenever they're fighting in the Order of the Phoenix?
It's not exactly how it works, but yeah.
But you get the idea, right? So if you die, that's where your soul goes or something like that?
Yeah, if you fall through it, you're in there
You're
as you die.
Okay, so that's the same thing. So there's this pool. Maybe this person ripped it off from Harry Potter. I don't know. But there's this pool where if you fall into there, you're into eternity. Your soul's taken, and basically, that's their afterlife essentially. For those who don't have the power within the Force to transcend that place, and so they fight, and they basically barely make it to where she, is defeated or falls into the pool or one or the other. I can't remember. I think she falls into the pool, or they push her into the pool, because you have this Sith who's Darth Krayt, one of the most powerful Sith ever. He's going to come generations later to upend the Jedi, but that's down the road. So him and Luke force her into the pool. She's defeated, and as they resurface, Krayt goes his own way on this astral plane. We don't know where he goes, and Luke reemerges to the known world from the time he's living in. And, she's barely been beaten, and everybody's like, yo, so what happened? And he says, she's gone, but she is so powerful. No one else has ever broken out of that eternity, basically. But if anybody could do it, Abeloth could do it. And the way that the series, The Fate of the Jedi, ends is that Luke and Ben Skywalker get in his ship, and they just they just go searching for Mortis, because it's very much kind of like Luke going out to find Octo after Kylo falls to the dark side. Luke knows that he cannot defeat Abeloth, but with the Mortis blade, he could. And so the series ends with Abeloth's out there somewhere. She's not dead. She's restricted again. She's kind of back in a cage of another sorts. And Luke and Ben are out there hunting the Mortis blade, because if they have the Mortis blade, they can end her for good. The series ends March of 2012, and then later that year, Disney buys it. We have no clue what happened. We don't know what happened with Abeloth. She's not gone. Does Luke and Ben find the blade? We don't know. But as of right now, within canon, they're all gone. And in Legends, Abeloth is out there somewhere trying to reemerge to take her vengeance on the galaxy. Luke and Ben are just hunting their little tails off, trying to find that blade before she's back. And Luke says she'll bide her time, but I want the Jedi to have this blade just in case. And we never know if they find it or not.
Crazy.
So, yeah, pretty intense.
Pretty wild world.
Yeah. So that's the ones. So in canon, father, son, daughter. And in Legends, father, son, daughter. And then kind of adopted mom who turns super evil. And they kind of describe her as she's so evil that it's like past dark side. It's just aimless. It's just evil incarnate. So it's
kind of think of it as like the anti-force. You know what I mean? Like if there's
there's no balance whatsoever.
The balance of life and death. Hers is just the
chaos,
the non-existence.
Yeah, there's a balance. Even with Sidious, there's order. There's it's called the First Order. You know what I mean? There's an empire. There's some people that you would say well we like the Empire being here because there's finally peace in our corner of the galaxy. He says
judged by any metric.
Yeah, there's and so once more the Sith will rule the galaxy and we will have peace. Like there's still an order to even the bad side of things in Star Wars, and Abeloth is absolute chaos, and that's what makes her so scary, is because she's just unpredictable. It's just death and destruction for its own sake. And so if you're interested in that story, go look up the Fate of the Jedi series. We'll drop a little picture in the video. But it's a 9-book series. It's by...
It's a lot of content.
Aaron Alston, Troy Denning, and I want to say this is Christy Golden's first Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look it up.
Perhaps.
I can't remember what Christy Golden writes else that's Star Wars that's new.
I haven't read any of her work
What does she
personally.
Let's see. Christy Golden Star Wars. Let's see. Pulling this up. I did have a question for you. I wanted to know what you thought about if Anakin had just been able to control them from the get-go. Yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking about that, just hypothetically. Because the father would have to believe that Anakin would somehow acquire the longevity to be the balance long term.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she wrote Dark Disciple. Duh.
Oh, did she?
Mm-hmm.
I remember George Lucas's daughter did like the original work for that story.
Yeah. Yeah, she had George Lucas's daughter was the one who had the idea, because she was working with Filoni's team at Clone Wars, and she kind of wrote the story for Dark Disciple, and then Christy Golden was the one that brought it all together into novelization form.
I don't know how I didn't know that. I've
read
that book multiple times. It's very good. But anyway, I think that the father, once he was sure of Anakin's willingness to do the thing, would probably have found some way to like bond his life with Anakin. If I'm the father, that's what I have ridiculous, outrageous force powers that nobody's ever heard of.
Do you, when you say bond his life to him, do you mean not an essence transfer like a dark side thing, but
no, because that would be more of a possession that would displace Anakin.
So do you mean just charge him up?
I mean there is some element of the father's anatomy that enables essential mortality. It's essentially
so transfer that
immortality,
but still the father dies no matter what.
Right,
and Anakin becomes the father.
Right. So I'm thinking
Stepdad Anakin.
That there's some sort of way that the father would be able to pass that attribute of his physiology onto Anakin.
Right.
Otherwise, this is just a Band-Aid. That wasn't like a...
Yeah, I think Anakin's looking
procedure.
for... Not Anakin. The father was looking for... This will begin to make things right. To quote The Force Awakens. Very interesting concept. And it's very crazy because I want to know more.
Right.
That would be a cool book or whatever to see.
To have like a canon version of the backstory of the ones. That would be very cool.
Yeah. I just remember...
We need Tim Zahn to write that. As I was
reading the Fate of the Jedi series, I just remember thinking we may have gone a bit too far with the villain, because I just don't see a way that we can, as the good guys, I just don't see a way that Abeloth can lose.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Thanos situation.
Yeah.
Or a Galactus if you're a deep Marvel fan.
Right. So they did find a way, and it wasn't time travel, thank God. But still, it was just so wild that it was Luke's last non-canon words were, "I'll be right back. This isn't fixed."
Right.
But think about that. That's part of the reason that the Luke Skywalker from the sequel trilogy is not enough for some folks.
Right.
I loved him in the sequel trilogy, especially when you get the full story 7 through 9 when he's coming back and his Force Ghost is so strong and those things. But when you've read the books,
right, and
the 9 books from Legacy of the Force and the 9 books Fate of the Jedi, and I'm not talking about. There are some people who say from the Dark Empire comics when he pulls a walker down, it's like, yeah, but that's Darkseid Luke. I'm not talking about just physical. I'm talking about just the depth of his relationship with the Force.
It's
I'm
something else.
I could give a good goddamn about Snoke or Palpatine or anyone else. We're talking about Luke Skywalker here.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the disconnect was for the super deep hardcore
Max
fans.
Power, Luke Skywalker.
Max power and max control.
Yeah.
Not a hair out of place.
I don't think there's... I mean, you've never seen anything like it,
Yeah. And in movie makers' defense, I don't even know if that makes a good hero on screen. Because it would just be 2 hours of him just kicking butt and taking names, and then we'd all go home. I'd pay to watch it. Think about it. You watched Rogue One. What was your favorite part?
Vader.
The Vader slaughter scene, right? So if you could watch that for 2 hours...
Yeah. I guess...
I would do it.
I guess the height of Luke that we get from the sequel trilogy would be his faked duel with Kylo. That's the most powerful thing we see him do.
Bro, there's a concept art from, I want to say from Colin Trevorrow's Rise of Skywalker ideas. where Luke appears to Kylo and is like, you're failing. You're not as strong as you think you are. You need to come back to the light. Palpatine's too strong for you. But there's a moment, anyways, I can't remember exactly what he's saying. I was reading kind of the script that goes along with the concept art, and Kylo gets mad, per usual, and swings at Luke. And Luke is like, and just holds that blade. And why we never saw that on screen, I will never forgive myself. I don't know why it's my fault, but I'm still upset.
Yeah. Yeah, even with that super powerful display of having like a full astral projection, essentially, he's
right.
fully formed enough to deceive somebody, 35 feet away.
Yeah.
Still nothing.
It's not the same.
Yeah, still nothing compared to what we saw.
Yeah. And I get that you can't do a god complex on him. Yeah. But I would love to just see your best efforts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for those of you who are still tuned in, that's the ones. So in canon, there's just 3. In Legends, there's 3.5. Kind of. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends and Star Wars fam. And if you have any comments or questions or, hey, I like this character, talk about them. We are definitely open to suggestions. So let us know. We'll see you guys same time next week. And
remember, whether you're the father, you're the son, or you're the daughter, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see y'all next week.